Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here. Blake, we're talking about the one NCAA tournament game left involving an SEC team. That is Arkansas and Gonzaga. That happens Thursday night at tip-off time, 6:09 Central in San Francisco at the Chase Center. Arkansas takes on Gonzaga, the number one seed in the tournament. And Arkansas has played well ever since mid-January, but Gonzaga, by nearly every computer, the best team in the country. Ken Pom has Gonzaga as 5 points better than any other team in the country. And this is not the matchup you'd hope you'd get if you were Arkansas.
I mean, look, there's a reason they're the number one seed in the tournament. You don't accidentally get there. You don't just luck your way into being there. And I know every year will talk about the competition in the WCC, but realistically, I think when you look at it this year, there was probably a few more teams in there that, as we saw, I think San Francisco finished fourth, and they were a win away from the Sweet 16. And so I get it. I mean, I think a lot of people will kind of try to look at the WCC and kind of compare it that way because it is a league where, something I was looking at, and if you're trying to, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to really try to break down the Zags because we know we have a lot of Arkansas fans that, will certainly have their opinion on how this game plays out, but we also want to give you insight into what you can expect from the opposition here. And, I was looking at the WCC, and it's interesting because, we're looking at Zaga, and this is a team that, like we said, they've got everything when you really look at it. I mean, they're the complete package, but it still is a league, despite it being better this year. What was it? I'm looking at Ken Pom, and I think the WCC ranked number one in blowout percentage. So, meaning, there's a lot more lopsided games in there because you kind of look at those teams at the top and you compare them kind of where those teams are at the bottom, the middle. And even though Gonzaga, like we said, maybe doesn't feel as invincible as they did a season ago, they're still beating teams a lot in that league, and even the good teams, right? It's just there are a lot of those pieces that are on this roster, which we know who we're talking about here: Drew Timme, Andrew Nembhard, those guys who have just played together for so many games now, and they built that chemistry up. That even though, you and I said this probably a couple weeks ago, we said, look, we think this team is beatable, and I think we saw at times in that Memphis game, especially. Even against Georgia State, right? Like kind of through the midway through the second half, it's an interesting game. But I think it's trying to find those spots where you can sort of try to attack them. And I think it is kind of, to me, and the biggest part of those two games were just preventing those big runs that this team can have where they can just flip things at a moment's notice, which again, against Georgia State, you would expect. Arkansas is not Georgia State. And I think with Memphis, it's kind of the same scenario there because Memphis was up. They were up what? They were up double digits early in the second half, I think. But it's always about with this team offensively. How do you kind of calm those big runs that they can have just because they can be so explosive offensively? And I think that, there's a lot that's going to go into that. And to me, that's priority number one. When you're trying to keep up with a team like this that just can kind of overwhelm you from an offensive standpoint. And so I think, but what have we said for the past month and a half? If there's a team that's had sort of the defensive turnaround in the SEC, it's Arkansas because they were just not there early in the season, but yet they've turned it around defensively. And look, we saw that against New Mexico State. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics going into this game. But I think it starts with defense and just the fact that you can't afford a team like Gonzaga to have those 10, 12, 15-0 type runs because that's how they put teams away. And I think that's what you try to prevent here, the big knockout punch.
The madness has officially begun. It's time for you to shoot your shot, score big on the nonstop action with MyBookie. It doesn't matter whether you're filling out multiple brackets, betting the national championship winner, or simply looking for player and game props, MyBookie has you covered. Sign up today at MyBookie. Use the promo code Southeastern to secure a first deposit bonus up to $1,000. It's simple. Put in $200, play with $300, use promo code Southeastern to claim your bonus. College ball, NBA, UFC, no matter the sport, no matter the minute, MyBookie puts the action in your hands with in-game live betting. and choose from thousands of lines and odds so you can turn any game day into payday. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with my bookie. Concern for me as I watched Arkansas play against New Mexico State is a lot of Arkansas's offenses getting to the rim, drawing fouls, converting. Gonzaga, the number one 3-point defense, the number one 2-point defense in the country. Chet Holmgren is terrific in the middle, shot blocker extraordinaire. I've never seen a player like him in the NCAA. He's just different. You just have to watch him and see for yourself. Drew Timme is not as much of a shot blocker, but can do that a little bit. And that's my concern for Arkansas is just the way the dynamics of that play out with what Arkansas would like to do.
I mean, look, if you watch the Memphis game, Memphis was able to find some opportunities, and I look back at it, and they shot 51% from two in that game because Memphis is another one of those teams, right, that they had actually shot the three well, but as we've seen in this tournament, a lot of teams that perhaps shoot the three well at times that are just not making shots. And that was kind of the case for them. And, and that's, I'm sure they look back at it and think, well, we go 4 of 19 from three, we make 2 more of those and we're on to the Sweet 16 perhaps. So I think that's one of the things is knowing that for Arkansas, like you said, they're probably, it's going to have to be how efficient can you be getting to the paint, avoiding the shot blockers in there, which is not going to be an easy task. And yeah, I mean, that's again, it's not just Gonzaga's offense, it's defensively knowing the size that they have. That is something that I think you have to really focus on. And look, I mean, it's hard to look at this and just, knowing we talk about kind of the size and those kind of things. I mean, you've got Drew Timme at 6'10, Holmgren's in there at 7 foot. And and I think that makes it, if you're Eric Musselman, like that's an interesting challenge, just to kind of think about how do you navigate around this, knowing that they're going to have 2 guys on the floor like that, which different, but I mean Auburn was kind of similar, right? In that Auburn was a team that had 6'10 and 7'1" on the floor a lot of the time, and I think this is one that's and I know you could do the equation and say, okay, well, Arkansas beat Auburn, so why couldn't they do this? I mean, it's a different scenario, but we're just trying to point out if you're looking for some similarities in how a team plays and how the rotation looks. This is another one of those teams that's going to have 2 guys at 6'10 or taller on the floor at the same time a lot of the game. So that's the big part of this, and it's going to come full circle here because who's going to be the most important player in this game?
J.D. Notae.
I think it's Jalen Williams because,
well, yeah.
I mean, well, obviously you can take your pick, right? Like it's J.D. Notae, it's Jalen Williams. I mean, it's the 2 guys that I think really fueled the turnaround that they've had this season. And I think if you start with Williams, we've said it. This is one of those games, and for the most part, I think he's done a good job with this recently. Because I was trying to think back, and I'm going to look it up here as we're talking, but I don't think there's been a lot of games, even if he has gotten a couple fouls, I think he's still played a lot of minutes here over the past whatever.
Well, one thing we talked about with him through the season is he did a really good job of staying out of foul trouble for the most part.
Right. Yeah.
So let me let you carry on with your train of thought there, and then I had a thing or two for you.
Yeah, no, and that was going to be kind of my point, was that when you really look at it, I think that is it here. Like, I think this is one of those games where he has been able to do a really good job of that. But like, this is where it has to be. Like, he cannot afford, I think, to be on the bench. I mean, look, he played 40 minutes against New Mexico State, and we've always said, I mean, the reason he's so valuable is because there's no one else on the roster that can kind of bring the things he can bring, not just with his size, but when you look at just the the rebounding, the scoring, being able to hit some jump shots. Like we know we've seen him knock down some jump shots. It's not always just having to score at the rim. So I think this is one of those games, and it's going to be easier said than done, right? Because you are going to be playing up against those 2 guys. He's going to have to be on the floor probably 35 minutes or more. I mean, I think that's what you look at for Arkansas. That's going to give you the best chance. So I think he's very important here, and I mean, that's where, again, when it comes to matchups and you're trying to figure out how do you defend Gonzaga, that's one of the things for Arkansas is they're going to have to, because they're gonna have to stay out of foul trouble. And I know we could say that about any team in any game, but it's so important in this kind of game because I think your room for error is so much smaller against a team like Gonzaga because they can, as we said, make those runs. Let's go back to Note for a second. Let's say JD Note, we have seen him pick up a couple quick fouls at times. If that happens in a game like this and you take off kind of your primary score, not your only score, but you take off kind of your dynamic, guy who can just go out and just bang, bang, bang and get you a lot of points in a hurry. If Gonzaga makes one of those quick runs, while he's out, and let's say you have a couple possessions where you're just not able to hit shots, that's what you can't afford against a team like this. So I think it is going to be all about sort of the disciplined approach here, knowing that I think actually Arkansas's physicality will help them here because I think if you're kind of, trying to be a little physical with a team like this, I think that's going to help you. But as we've said, right, it's how's the game called and can you get away with that kind of stuff? The level of physicality maybe that we did see in the SEC during the regular season, and we've seen sometimes in this tournament, it just kind of depends on what you're going to get. So there's a lot of different layers to this, but I do think Jalen Williams is the most important player for Arkansas here just because of the size. They have to have him on the floor. But on the flip side, it is a scenario where if you're Arkansas, how do they like to play? They like to get up and down the floor, and so does Gonzaga. But I think that's where maybe you do, and in some instances, it's like, hey, slowing it down. I don't think is necessarily going to be the key to success for Arkansas. You're just going to have to try to duel it out with them and get up and down the floor and use your defense to create offense. So there's a lot to this matchup, and we could go on for an hour about all the different little tiny things that you could look at here, but there's a lot of fascinating parts on both sides.
Okay, I've got two questions for you, but first, a quick word from a sponsor. Wager on sports and win NFTs without risking any money. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, Stakes is the wagering app that's casual, social, and made for all sports fans. Whether it's by yourself or with friends, experience the thrill of sports betting without needing to worry about losing your hard-earned money. Sign up, use our code Southeastern14. Join the thousands of other sports fans playing with Stakes. Terrific app, good guys there. Go find it in the App Store under Stakes, Stakes. And I'll be creating some Arkansas-related polls over there. So jump in, help us out, help out an ad partner. And that app really is a lot of fun, which you can have some fun with that well beyond college basketball because they dive into a lot of stuff. They do.
A lot of stuff.
Okay, I've got two questions for you, and you touched on one of them earlier. And look, we've talked about how some matchups, sometimes on paper, like we said Auburn, Miami did not appear to pose a threat to Auburn on paper. From the way the season had played out, we know how that happened. So games are not played on paper, but you talked about Auburn, and I'm thinking Auburn probably the most similar team that Arkansas played to Gonzaga. I mean, I don't think there's probably a close second because of the big.
From a size standpoint, yeah.
Yes. Auburn also likes to play fast at times. That game, Arkansas won that 80-76 in overtime. That was back on February the 8th. That was at Arkansas, of course. In that game, J.D. Note, 4 of 11 from 2, 3 of 9 from 3, but 11 of 14 from the line. Williams did get in foul trouble. He had 4. He had 11 boards, and one thing I hate about Ken Palm is sometimes they don't put the obvious things down here like points. But anyway, 2 of 6 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, 6 of 7 from the line. So add that up, how many ever points that was. Note had 4 blocks in that game, by the way. That's an odd stat. But what Arkansas did is it converted from the foul line, 26-32. It's been a good foul shooting team all year. Now, Gonzaga doesn't foul a lot, but anything in that analysis of how those two played that you think is relevant here?
I mean, look, Arkansas is a team that has to get the free throw line. We've said that. And that's not to say that they can't win if they don't, but they're the team that shot the most free throws in the SEC this season. And we've seen that's how, right? That's how they're able to keep the Must Bus gassed up and rolling is they're able to get to the rim, get people in foul trouble. And I think that's a That's a big part of it. So that's like I was saying a minute ago. I mean, it's just we've seen this be kind of a detriment at times to other SEC teams in the tournament, but it really hasn't been the case for Arkansas because they've still how many free throws they shoot against New Mexico State? 25, right? 22 of 25 from the line in that one. Go back to Vermont. What? How many they take against Vermont? 25. Like they're right there. Like they're right above average from where they were during the season. So I think that's very important. Like they're going to have to find a way to get to the foul line because if they don't, then again, I think that puts the pressure on you to have to make those shots inside against 6'10" and 7 foot. And I think it also puts the pressure on you to do something that you don't really want to have to do, and that's shoot a lot of shots from outside. And we've said that. I mean, I think that's been a problem for other SEC teams. So, um, yeah, I mean, they've got to get the free throw line in this one, and that's where if you're looking at Gonzaga and you're trying to think, okay, well, we talked about if Arkansas gets in foul trouble, what happens if Gonzaga gets in foul trouble? What does the rotation look like, right? That's very important too. I mean, this is a team plays what probably about seven. I think they go about seven deep.
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're about seven deep. I think on a good night. So I think that's one where it is kind of like Arkansas in that your starting five are still going to play the bulk of your minutes. Like that's Gonzaga. They're still their starting five is still going to play that with Timmy, Holmgren, Bolton, Strother, Nimhard. Like they're still going to play a lot of minutes. And you can like we know too, once you get to tournament time, even on teams that maybe have a little bit deeper rotations, you're going with your guys. Like you're
Yeah,
going with the
really
guys.
it's about 8, but yeah, looking a little further. So there's
Yeah.
your number.
So there you go. I mean, 7, 8. So they are. I mean, they're a team that has options, and we understand that. I mean, it is a team that is going to play quite a few guys because I think, yeah, I think the one I was not including, and it's because he didn't play a whole lot against Memphis. It's kind of been minutes been up and down. That was Hunter Salas. So yeah, so I think you look at it that way. Is Arkansas's key to success? I think is still getting to the free throw line, and it's just how can you attack that team that statistically, as we said, has been really good at being able to stop teams from scoring effectively inside the perimeter. And I think that's where getting to the free throw line is going to be so important there because that has still been something that has fueled Arkansas in a lot of these games. And I don't know how anyone could take that as a knock, but if they do, that's a good thing because it is something that you can say, all right, this is what we're able to lean on. Like we need to be able to get to the free throw line and we need to keep playing kind of the attacking style that we played to get us to this point. And we don't want to have to be one of those teams. And like we said, we've seen other SEC teams do this that all of a sudden has to abandon what we've done to get here and maybe turn to a 5 extra 3-pointers, which statistically is probably not a great idea. So that is what I think it comes down to. Let's just be clear here. Arkansas will probably have to play one of their best games of the entire season to win this game. But as we said 2 weeks ago, this is not a Gonzaga team that just feels invincible. They may win the whole thing. It may happen. Like they may win the whole entire tournament. And I think I wound up picking them in my bracket. I'll be honest with you. One of those things where I filled out several brackets for different pools, but I mean I think that they could certainly win it all. And again, that's how shocking would that be as the number one overall seed in this tournament? But it's just I don't know that they're last year it felt like there were just if we tried to do this last year, again, that would have been a fun matchup with Gonzaga and Arkansas, but it was still a team with Gonzaga. There just came a point where it's like, I don't know how you beat them. Like it's just but this team to me, we saw like Memphis did some things that you say, okay, well, there's a couple things you can look at. We've seen I mean, St. Mary's game, right? Like there's different things you can point to here. So I think that's something to keep in mind is I think there will be a lot of people who just kind of dismiss this game and look at it as though, all right, well, Gonzaga's just going to come out and walk to a 15-point victory. I don't think it's that easy. So
well, let's flip the question around. And I know Gonzaga plays a pretty aggressive out of conference schedule normally. I'm looking through Ken Palm as you're speaking, trying to think if they played anybody like Arkansas, and nobody comes to mind. I mean, I know San Fran's got some pretty good guards, but they don't really get to the line a lot. So, I mean, I don't know that Gonzaga's seen a team like Arkansas either, if you want to look at it from that standpoint.
I mean, and that's it's so been so different, right?
Right.
Because
And and,
I
and
mean,
maybe that means nothing, but our job here is to look at every angle. So
well, look, they played Texas, UCLA, Duke, Alabama, Texas Tech in the non-conference. But that, to me, I think it's always dangerous to go back that far after. Because again, what if we went back that far for Arkansas? Right? It would be completely different. So yes, I mean we know the games they lost: Duke, Alabama, St. Mary's. Um, they caught Alabama on a terrific shooting night. And, again, though, that was a long time ago. And Gonzaga went 13 to 25 from the line in that one. Something I am curious about, and I'm going to look this up real quick because this is another important stat maybe to look at here in terms of um, fouls, because I think that's another important aspect of this is to kind of see, all right,
Gonzaga
if
doesn't
if
foul a ton.
if you are Arkansas, right, and you're trying to figure out a way to kind of, you know, get through and get to the line, because that has been something they've been very successful in doing. How do you do that against this team? And is this a team that, I mean, hey, Arkansas is 292nd nationally in fouls committed. So that's like we said, that you've got to play a game here where I think you don't want to put yourself in those positions, because then again, if let's say if it is Williams or if it's Note, that just puts more pressure on Tony and Amude and those guys. I mean, Chris Likes will have to play minutes here. Like it's going to be one of those things where that's going to have to happen. I'm still scrolling through and I haven't seen Gonzaga yet. So
Okay, let me
I
while you're scrolling, let me give you some stats. This is according to Ken Palm. Fouls charged per 40 minutes. Drew Timmy 2.3, Chad Holmgren 3.8, Anton Watson 4.2. Um, that's how it is for their bigs. And you pointed this out before too. Um, a lot of whistles blown in the SEC for fouls. That doesn't always happen in the tournament. So maybe a lot depends on who's calling this game too.
Well, I think could be wrong, but I think Doug Schaus is out there somewhere. So
Mm.
I could be wrong about that. Jeff Goodman put out the assignments yesterday, but I think I saw him there. I could be wrong in San Francisco, but Gonzaga 69th, yeah, 480 fouls on the season, so 69th nationally. That's pretty good in terms of staying out of foul trouble. But again, that I think can be misleading because of the conference you play in, and it's not you're not seeing the exact type of style that Arkansas plays. So
Well, let me throw something at you too. Let's work backwards. Fouls for Chet Holmgren. 5 against Memphis, 3 against Georgia State, 4 against St. Mary's, 4 against San Francisco, 5 against St. Mary's. Now, before that, he didn't foul out all year, and he had 4 fouls on 1, 2, 3 occasions before that run. So, for whatever reason, whether it's fluke or whether it's something else, Chet Holmgren has been playing with a lot more foul trouble, and that is absolutely a game changer if that happens.
yeah, yeah, it is. And I mean, I tell you, this to me feels like one of those really sneaky, entertaining games because you do have two teams that are going to get up and down the floor, and if they're hitting shots, right, like it can be a pretty fun matchup here, I think, between these two. And so again, we can't tell you how the game's going to play out. Who knows? But it's I think it's very interesting setup for Arkansas because I think Arkansas they have the speed with the guards, and we've talked about that. If you're trying to turn defense into offense, which they've been able to do much better than where they were when they were struggling a couple months ago. This isn't a Gonzaga team. We know it's just kind of a well-oiled machine. They're not going to turn the ball over a lot. They're not going to really beat themselves. Everybody, if you watch them play, you understand. Like this is just kind of what they do. And I think this is where you get Davis, you get Note, even Likes, like those kind of guys from the guard position. The speed and the steals, those things are going to be so huge in this because if you just let Gonzaga run their offense, and get up and down the floor and not really force a lot of turnovers. I think that's going to be another challenge because I think you're going to have to get some of those easy buckets against this team. You can't just do it by grinding it out on offense. You're going to have to get some of those steals and get, 10, 15 points off turnovers, maybe more, right? Like I think that's the recipe for success here. And, again, that's where I think Arkansas has become such a good defensive team that, I think I think they got a shot here. And don't worry, I'm sure someone's going to quote that right there if they lose by 15 or more. But I just think with the speed and those kind of things, but they are going to have to play one of their best games this season. They're gonna have to play one of the most disciplined games of the season from a fouling standpoint. Like you just again, you cannot afford to do that, I think, in this scenario, knowing what you're going up against and knowing how quickly a team like Gonzaga can capitalize on those kind of things when one of your better players is off the floor. So that's going to be really important here to me, and that's where again, whether it's Note, whether it's Williams, any of the guys. I mean, we've said this is basically what? I mean, it's basically a six-man rotation at this point. Although you're going to have a couple other guys that can come in and give you a few minutes here or there, but that's basically what it is. I mean, really, look at the New Mexico State game, right? Three guys played 40 minutes. I mean, Tony, Williams, Mude never came off the floor. So I think that's going to be something too that's very important. And that's why I think the key to this game will be that disciplined approach on defense. Yet, I think you've still got to find a way to disrupt and force those turnovers and turn it into offense. Because I think if you're just relying on matching Gonzaga offense for offense, and you're not necessarily a great 3-point shooting team, and you're a team that needs to get a lot of that from the free throw line, I think that's where things could become difficult for Arkansas if it plays out in that manner.
Okay, one other thing, and you tell me where you think these guys factor in. I think Arkansas had arguably the two most underrated players in the league. Well, they had the first, which is Stanley Umude. And Audius Toney had a really nice in the background season too. Umude is a guy that can give you 20, 25 in a game like this if needed. Toney, not a guy that's going to do that, but he might go 4-4 from the field and give you 13 points. That kind of guy. How do these guys factor in?
I mean, yeah, they're going to have to be. I think Toney defensively is just going to have to be, as important as it gets. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Because again, it's defensively, it's trying to stop this, runaway train here. I mean, it's just you're trying to slow this team down, and I think that's where Toney, again, they can't afford for him to get in foul trouble, and it's those kind of things. I mean, I think having the lineup that Arkansas has, I think just from a starting five standpoint, I feel like if you're Arkansas, you feel okay about being able to try to at least do some things that are going to, knowing that you do have a solid group here. I mean, again, you mentioned it, Umude and Toney, two of the most underrated players in the league. I mean, and those guys can play bigger, right? Like, I think that's important too. Tony's what, 6'6", but he can play bigger. Like he can do a lot of things. Doesn't matter if you're, your opposition 6'9", 6'10", whatever. I think we've seen Toney. He's just a tough, physical kid, and I think that's where he's going to be able to help them in a lot of different ways in this game. And I think he could be. Look, everyone's important in a game against Gonzaga. Like it's just everyone has to play their role. Everyone has to play, the different way that they can play to kind of add that advantage in different areas. And I think that's what's going to be important here. So there's no doubt. I mean, they need scoring games. They need defensive games. They need it from everyone because, as I said, I think I don't think we've ever said Gonzaga's overrated because I don't think that's true. I've said I think they're beatable. And
well, we've had questions about them. There's times I've watched them. I'm just not as sure about their guards. I liked their guards better a year ago. I mean, the computers love them, and there have been times I've wondered about the computers. We've talked about it with Houston. So far, Houston has proven the computers seem to know what they're talking about. Speaking of which, is a sort of a related tangent here. You look out here, and of the top 12 teams in KenPom, 9 of them are still playing. Baylor, Kentucky, Tennessee, the only exceptions. Then the next best teams in order of KenPom: Arkansas, North Carolina, Michigan, Providence, Iowa State, and Miami. So the remaining Sweet 16, other than St. Peter's, all top 42 KenPom teams for whatever that's worth. So the computers have been pretty good so far.
Don't get me going on that rant.
Okay.
About just using the computers to judge.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. I want to be clear.
But I know that. I'm relating it to another discussion we've had in one of our recent videos in the last couple of days. Yeah. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. So, no, it's a good point. So again, I don't think Gonzaga is overrated. I think they're beatable. Will that be Arkansas? Don't know. But we've said this for a couple weeks now, and I think again it's easy to say that because last year's team went into what championship undefeated. This team not undefeated, and we've seen some of those. I mean, we've seen some of the gaps. We saw them against Georgia State. We saw them against Memphis. It's just you have to prevent those big punches that they can throw. I mean, they can throw the haymakers in a minute and game over. That's what it comes down to, I think, for Arkansas. You have to prevent those big runs. You don't have to make it a grinded out game in terms of, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be a grind from the standpoint of just slow down, methodical. It's just you have to make them grind for everything here. And I think that's where Arkansas, boy, again, I hope this doesn't turn into a ref show. That's all I'll say. So
yeah, and if you didn't watch the Georgia State game, that game was anybody's ball game with 10 minutes left until until Gonzaga had one of those spurts. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So
Memphis led them by, 10 at the half?
Yeah, I mean, they're up 12, 19, 18 minutes left in the second half. So, yeah.
Tell folks about our partnership with Action 24/7, then give us your final thoughts and your pick.
Action 24/7, promo code South14, description below. Click on that link. You can use that code. If you want to bet on these games, go for it. And you can do it that way. And
Match
there's other
the
Sweet
deposit
16.
up to $800.
There you go. Match it. I can't keep up anymore. Match the deposit up to $800. And if you want to bet on any of these games, not just Gonzaga and Arkansas, you can do that there. But I mean, look, we know how this works. Everybody's going to be picking Gonzaga. I think you look at the line. What is I got to look this up. Sorry, I'm just very unprepared at this second.
There's lots of moving parts these days.
There's a lot going on.
Lovell and Lee households.
A lot going on the coaching standpoint. There's a lot happening. Let me find this real quick because I saw it earlier. By the way, if you want to bet on Arkansas to make the Final Four, they have the lowest odds of any team left. So if you want to really get back at the betting world, you can do that according to Action 24/7 here.
What is that?
Where is it? Plus 1,000. So they're at.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, they're below Michigan. So there you go. If you want to stick it to them, go for it. I'm going to be honest with you right now. I cannot find the line for the game as of this point. So
KenPom's got it at 10.
There you go. I think it'll wind up about 9.5. Would probably take Arkansas in that scenario. I just think that this could be one of those. Like we said, it's going to take a great game plan. But I think Muss is someone who we've seen it over the years. This guy's pretty good when it comes to crafting the right game plan. And again, it's not like Gonzaga just completely. I think that the score line against Georgia State, I don't think it's misleading. But as we said, that was a game midway through the second half. Memphis took them to the wire. So I mean, statistically, Arkansas is better than both of those teams, right? So I think it could wind up being a pretty good game here. And so I think, look, and Muss is someone else too that I think that he will use this as motivation. Because again, right, they're going in, no one's going to pick Arkansas to win. And I think he will use that as motivation here. And again, to me, this just feels like one of those teams, like they're just, I know, I'm not saying they're Georgia here, but Arkansas's got like a bunch of those just bulldog types on their team, right? These guys that just will go out and they're not afraid to be physical, and they can really. I like the way this team has come together. I know everyone else will kind of point out, look at the first two games. They were grinds for Arkansas, but as we said, this is kind of a reset. You get that reset for several days, and I don't know. Trust me, we've been wrong before on these games, and all of our people will tell you that. But I don't know. There's just something about this one that I think it's basically going to be, it's in San Francisco. There'll be a lot of Gonzaga fans there, but I think there'll be a lot of Arkansas fans there. And who was it? Flying Blind. He
Flying Blind. Yeah, he said he's raised some money.
Quickly go over that. I didn't get to see that, but
I don't have it in front of me, but I think he said he started a GoFundMe to get he and his dad to San Francisco, raised $5,000, I believe.
Yeah,
made
how about
it happen.
That is awesome. So
yeah.
Congrats on that. Enjoy. Again, no matter the outcome, that will be a fun experience. So enjoy that flying blind. We always appreciate your feedback and you watching everything we do. You've been one of our loyal people, so you deserve it. Enjoy it, and yeah, hopefully it turns out to be a fun game for Arkansas fans. And yeah, we'll see how it plays out. So
We need Arkansas to win. We really do. I was
what are we
not
going to talk about
expecting.
if they don't? What are we going to do?
There's always stuff to talk about if you're paying
I
attention, and we
know,
pay
I
attention.
know.
But it's different. You don't want to go into the weekend with no SEC teams left. That
No.
spoils a lot of the fun around here.
People are already having a lot of fun at our expense right now.
Oh
So
yeah, it's March.
if Arkansas gets the Final Four, we're getting the 14 bus gassed up. We're tying it onto the Must bus. We're heading around the world.
I was prepared to have a little fun today too, but we needed to go a different direction, and maybe we'll save that for another day.
I got a couple minutes. What do you got?
No, I think I'm gonna hold it for tomorrow.
All right.
Well,
Well, that gives you something to
your
look forward
call.
to.
Your call.
Oh,
Now,
there you go.
Let's hold it.
Suspense.
Let's
The
hold
thriller. We're like a suspense novel.
Yeah.
All right. There you go.
it. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again when we come back Thursday to talk about something, even if we're not entirely sure what that is. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.